Writing can be an uphill battle, but it's not because you lack talent. It's only because you haven't wired your brain to find it rewarding. And in this video, I'm going to teach you exactly how to do that. If you don't know me already, I'm Maureen Wiley. I'm a professor and a book coach, and I help people overcome their limiting beliefs in order to help them write fearlessly. The secret to writing is leveraging your neurotransmitters to help you feel good during and after the process. Instead of forcing your brain to try to use things like willpower to white-knuckle your way through writing projects, you can rewire your brain to start craving the writing process in the same way that you crave other dopamine-inducing activities. In this video, I'm going to break down the 5 major neurotransmitters that impact motivation and how you can use them to make writing more enjoyable and sustainable. First up, we've got dopamine, also known as the molecule of motivation. Dopamine is released in our brains when we experience curiosity or we anticipate rewards. This is why social media is so powerful. We are curious to find out more answers, and we want to get the reward of checking our notifications, which give us that hit of dopamine. Here's how to hack dopamine for your writing process. A lot of apps use this strategy already, and that is to gamify your progress. You can start this by setting micro goals, tracking your writing streaks, setting certain word count challenges every day, or using writing sprint timers. If you like these kind of videos on writing motivation, then make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps more people find my channel and for me to connect with more writers who want to start putting their work out into the world. Because dopamine is the molecule most closely associated with rewards, you can also lean on using a reward system to hack your brain to experience more dopamine when you're writing. If you start to associate your writing process, like wearing your favorite sweatshirt, drinking your favorite kind of tea, or even rewarding yourself afterwards with some small pleasures, your brain is going to start to look forward to the writing process. This is just the easiest way to get your brain to do something that you're not particularly motivated to do. Give yourself a reward on the other side. Another strategy is to write first and edit later. Over-editing often drains our dopamine. Part of the curiosity that is inspired during the writing process is really dampened when we don't let ourselves just be messy in our first drafts and let our words romp around on the page. So when you start writing and you think about it as something where you're chasing dopamine, you want to just let yourself be free. Write a messy first draft and you can always edit it later. In fact, I think the editing process can be one of the most satisfying parts of the writing process, and satisfaction has everything to do with our next neurotransmitter, and that is serotonin. Serotonin is linked to the feeling of contentment and overall well-being. Unlike dopamine, which is about chasing highs, serotonin is really about feeling satisfaction with who we are and what we're doing with our lives. So here's how to hack serotonin for your writing process. It's important to understand that serotonin and dopamine are balanced out in the brain through a process, which means that if we are overindulging in dopamine, then our brain is going to naturally down-regulate our serotonin levels. I learned all about this process in the incredible book, The Hacking of the American Mind by Dr. Robert Lustig. So if you want to learn more about that, I highly recommend checking out that book. So when we're overindulging in dopamine, it's really hard for our brain to balance it out with those lovely serotonin neurotransmitters. In order to hack our brain for more serotonin, we need to make sure not to indulge in dopamine-inducing activities before we start writing. So if we want more serotonin when writing, then we have to avoid dopamine. I think this is why a lot of writers write first thing in the morning, and they avoid things like social media before they sit down with the page. So if you want to get more serotonin for your writing process, then create a consistent writing schedule that allows you to take a break from all dopamine-inducing activities for a period of time before you begin the creative process. This can be helped by a daily writing ritual, like a lot of writers who wake up first thing in the morning and start to write before they've looked at their screens of any kind. I notice my own writing process is a lot easier if I do it before I've looked at the internet. And if you want to go into a really focused session of deep work, I recommend a strategy that's a little bit extreme, and that is the dopamine detox. A dopamine detox is a fast from all technology for as long as potentially 24 hours. Some people do it even like 48 hours. I know some people who even go as long as a week without technology. That might be a little bit too extreme, but with my students every semester, we have a challenge where we have a screen-free Saturday, and I challenge them to go 6 hours minimum without any use of technology, except for things like the radio. I think I'm okay with that. In their reflections, my students always write the most fascinating things about how they didn't think it would be that difficult, but they immediately felt the withdrawal of their technology, and they were even feeling kind of uncomfortable, like they were addicted to their screens. But after a small amount of time, they start to relax into the process. I'm guessing this is where their serotonin kicks in. And then they start to do creative things, like many of my students write about how they started drawing or painting, or they played a game, or they did something creative like cooked with a relative. And they always report that they feel this sense of ease, contentment, and peace at the end of their screen fast. I recently completed a 24-hour screen fast last Saturday, and I was so productive with my reading, writing, and in general, just my thinking. It really allowed me the space that I don't normally have when I'm constantly connected to technology, and it inspired this video. Up next, we've got a fun one, and that is adrenaline, aka the time crunch neurotransmitter. Adrenaline fuels action in high-pressure situations. This is why when we feel the deadline approaching, we start to kick into gear with our writing. So here's how you can hack your adrenaline for the writing process. First up is the tool of a writing sprint. This is where you set a timer for 20 to maybe 30 minutes, and you just write non-stop until the timer goes off. Write as fast as you can, and remember, don't edit. Let your first draft be messy. This sense of urgency is going to override the perfectionism that's actually at the root of your procrastination. If you want to check out my series about how procrastination holds you back, then check out these videos up here. A lot of writers like to create artificial deadlines for themselves. So if you don't have an external deadline for your writing project, announce a publishing date or commit to a specific deadline that you tell a group of people and you want them to hold you accountable. There are even websites where you can pledge a certain amount of money that will be donated to a charity that you don't actually support if you don't meet your deadline on time. The pain of losing that money is going to spark that adrenaline in your system, and it's going to get you writing. This is all connected to the idea that adrenaline is related to friendly competition. A lot of people like to join writing challenges. This is why NaNoWriMo, or the National Novel Writing Month, is a very popular thing to do each November. Depending on your personality, a little rivalry can be excellent for your writing motivation. If you don't yet have anybody that you want to be in a friendly competition with, then leave a comment below and see if you can connect with some of my other viewers and set up your own writing competition group to spark that adrenaline and get started. A strategy I use almost every day to spark adrenaline is to pair writing with some high energy focused music. Upbeat instrumental tracks or background noise like binaural beats can create a sense of momentum in your writing process. A student of mine mentioned recently that he likes to listen to the scores from video games while he's writing because they often don't have lyrics and they often build a sense of momentum as he's working on his creative projects. I love that idea. I'm totally going to try it out, but I actually don't know any video game soundtracks, so if you have any suggestions, please let me know below. Up next, we've got my favorite neurotransmitter, and that is oxytocin. Oxytocin is the neurotransmitter of connection. It's sometimes called the neurotransmitter of love, but I think love is actually a combination of many of these different neurotransmitters. So think of oxytocin as the neurotransmitter that makes us feel connected and emotionally engaged. Writing is often an isolating process, but it doesn't have to be. If you want to hack your oxytocin for writing, then write as if you're writing to a specific person. Whenever I'm writing an essay for my Substack, I like to imagine one of my friends and I write the essay as if I were writing it in an email to her. You can imagine a friend, a favorite family member, or even your past self. Writing to someone specific makes it feel more meaningful. If you want to lean on more than just adrenaline of friendly competition, you can also share your writing in a writing community. There are a ton of spaces online. It all depends on the type of writing that you're doing. And if you want a broader space for all kinds of writing, I highly recommend starting a Substack. It's a really fun place where people are experimenting with their writing and they're connecting with others and they're having a blast. I know I am. If you want to learn more about how to fall in love with the writing process, specifically the process of writing a novel, I'd love for you to join me this spring as I host a weekly group coaching call for aspiring novelists. In my 90-day novel incubator, we're going to learn the fundamentals of storytelling, and I'm going to help writers build their story blueprint, setting them up to be ready to hit the ground running, tap into these wonderful neurotransmitters, and write the novel they've always dreamed of writing. If you want to join us, check out the link below and sign up for my 90-day novel incubator. I can't wait to see you there. Pets are actually well known for increasing oxytocin levels. So a classic of the writer genre is to have a cat at your side whenever you're writing. If you have a dog, you can take that dog on walks and not only boost your oxytocin, but use that as an opportunity for some free creative thinking. Some of my best ideas come to me on my walks. Finally, we come to our last neurotransmitter, and that is endorphins, which is part of the euphoria that we experience whenever we complete a project. Endorphins are released when we exercise, that's kind of what they're mostly known for, and when we experience joy. They actually act as nature's painkillers, and they increase our sense of overall well-being. So how can you hack your endorphins for the writing process? First of all, you can start off with some endorphins. So go for a run or do some jumping jacks, get your heart rate moving, and pump up those endorphins before you sit down to write. This is part of getting you out of the fight, flight, or freeze nervous system response, which is an essential part of entering into the safe, social, and creative side of the nervous system. I talk more about nervous systems in this video up here. Endorphins come from finishing your work. It's all well and good to start a million projects, but it's only in the completion of our work do we really feel that sense of satisfaction and that boost of endorphins. This can come especially from sharing your work online. Now, I talk a lot about the importance of sharing your work from day one and getting comfortable with the idea of sharing your work with others. And a huge benefit of that is actually the endorphins that you'll feel from some kind of back and forth engagement with another person by sharing your work online. You can share your writing on social media, you can make YouTube videos, you can share your writing with a friend by sending it directly to them via email, and you can even make new connections. For example, last week I wrote an essay about the book New Happy by Stephanie Harrison for my Substack, and then I shared the link with Stephanie, and she actually shared it with her audience as well, and then we connected, and I feel like I'm building a writing community online. That gives me a great feeling, which I consider to be a combination of endorphins, serotonin, and oxytocin. And finally, we can hack our brains for all of these neurotransmitters by changing our goal from happiness to satisfaction. In the same vein of what I wrote about in my essay on New Happy, happiness is a fleeting emotion, and it's based on momentary pleasures. Our society is obsessed with the dopamine high. Satisfaction is more long-term. It comes from achieving meaningful work, of recognizing our gifts and talents and sharing them freely with the world. So instead of chasing dopamine highs of writing happiness, chase writing contentment. The way to do this is to start small. Pick one of the strategies I've talked about in this video, share it with someone, and celebrate yourself when you've reached that goal. Which one are you going to try first? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.